doing Bava Kama in the Nemuke in the Rif in Bava Kama. Okay. The Rif on Asugin Bava Kama. If you have the old-fashioned Dape Harif, it's going to be Mem Gimel. Daf Mem Gimel and Dape Harif. But it's the Rif on Daf Kuf Yud Zayin Amud Aleph. It's the third line on the Mem Gimel if you have the old-fashioned Rif. The last word on the line is Rav Huna. Okay, so let me just give you a quick summary about what we're diving into, because what we're about to dive into is very, very complicated, and I'm going to show you all of the issues and the conflicting issues that are at work, and the Rif's opinion, and the others that argue very strongly on the Rif, and we're going to try to stay focused. We're trying to keep straight what it is. So, if you remember, we're talking here about Matzil Atzmo Bmamon Chavero.
Right.
What money are you giving to the goy to save yourself? Okay, are you giving the money? We'll talk about Reuven giving Shimon's money. So Reuven can give Shimon's money because he was being forced to give his own money, and instead of giving his money, he's giving Shimon's money. Or he could be that he's giving Shimon's money when the goy demanded, "Give me Shimon's money or I'll kill you." So the question is, and we're going to see these are all you don't realize that these questions came up along the way in the sugyas, but that's going to be one of the issues. The other question is, did you show money or did you hand them money? All right. And in the middle is when they force you to bring the money. You didn't give them the money under pressure. You brought them the money. Well, that might be worse and it might be better. Okay, so we've got showing the money, giving the money by hand, and bringing the money. Okay, and that's going to be basically what we're going to have to figure out. What's the difference between bringing and showing, and handing, and whose money are you being forced to produce? Are you being forced to give money, and you used Shimon's money, or were you forced to give Shimon's money and you gave Shimon's money? And then does it matter whether you handed it or you showed it? All of these are all the complications. Okay, so that's what's going to be talked about in the Rif, and the Nemuki Yosef is going to bring many Rishonim and Gibonim that argue on the Rif. So let's pick it up on the third line on Mem Gimel Amud Aleph. Okay, again, the Rif just quotes the Gemara, but then he expresses his opinion. Okay, so Rav Huna Bar Yehuda Ikloy Lebe Avyune. Also, that's the story. Did you have anything new? Give me a new, interesting case that you had. Amarle, here's the case. Yisrael Ansuhu Kusin, the Hera Bmamon Chavero. So the goy forced Reuven something, and in response to the being forced, he showed them Shimon's money. So we've already got here, it's not clear what he was forced to do, but he showed Shimon's money. Okay? And chiyavti, I made him chayav to pay. Amar le kum ahadrin uvdudamari. You got to give back the money. You made a mistake. The Tanya, because we have a brisa. Let's see how the brisa, stay focused. How does this brisa contradict what Rava did? Yisrael Shansuhu Kusim, the Hera Bmamon Chavero. That sounds exactly like the case that Rava had. The goy was on Suhu, and he showed Bmamon Chavero. Potter, Inotal v'nosan biyad chayev. So the only time that Reuven is chayev is if he hands the goy the money. But if he just shows the goy Shimon's money to get off the hook, remember, the goyim are after him. They want money. And he shows Shimon's money, he's okay. If he hands Shimon's money, then he's going to be chayiv. So Rava is being challenged. Why did you make the guy chayiv? He only showed the money. How's Rava responding? Amar Rava im hera me atzmo k'moshe nosa v'nosan biyadami. Then if he gave it on his own accord, hera me atzmo, that's like handing the money. So it's not clear here. What does it mean, hera me atzmo? It sounds like he was forced to do it. Okay, so we'll have to see how that plays out. Okay, so now Ika deman de Omar. So now the Rif is going to bring an opinion which he will be arguing on. There is an opinion. Ki heicha di Yisrael shansuhu kusin v'hera Bmamon Chavero-Saving. Just like if he was forced, and he showed the money. Hachinami Yisrael shansuhu kusin lehavi Bmamon Chavero v'holach v'havi pater. So showing and bringing, says this opinion, is the same. Meaning, I was forced, and I didn't take the money and hand it, but I was forced to bring it. The Anan says the Rif, I don't agree with that. Lo svira lan hachi. I don't agree with that. If you look carefully at the sugya, lo salka aliba dahai svara. It doesn't come out according to the svara that bringing the money and showing the money is the same. The high detanya im nosa v'nosan biyad chayev. The Brisa said like this. What did the Brisa say? The Brisa said that if you were forced and you showed it, you're pater, but if you handed it, you're chayev. So wait a minute. What's the scenario? B'mayaskina, iba onus. If he was forced, according to this opinion, right? Ha-amrinan, meaning they say pater. Ve'ime atzmo, and if he did it on his own without being forced, ma'yiri nosa v'nosa b'yad afilu heranami chayev, as Rava said. If he showed it without duress, of course he's going to be chayev. And if he was forced at gunpoint to hand it, he should be pater. Ela lav hachika omar. This is not correct. Yisrael shansu kusim v'hera Bmamon Chavero pater dafka hera aval nosan v'nosan biyad chayev. So v'af agav the onis lo shno ansuhu v'holach hu v'hevi lo shno ansuhu lahavi v'hevi. So there's two kinds of force. They could force him to bring Shimon's money. They hold a gun at his head and they say, bring Shimon's money or we'll kill you. And he goes and he brings Shimon's money. Or they say, we want money or we'll kill you. And he goes and he brings Shimon's money. So if they're forcing him, there shouldn't be a difference whether they forced him for money and he brought Shimon's money, or they forced him to bring Shimon's money and he brought Shimon's money. V'hachinami mistavra. The Omar, now we're going to show you why this makes sense. That there should not be that bringing money is always handing money. I don't care whether they forced you to bring it or they forced you for money and you brought it. The minute you bring it, that's handing. Let's prove it. Just a second. Right. Even if they forced you to bring it, if they forced you for money and you went to bring Shimon's money, of course you're chayiv. But what happens if they forced you to bring Shimon's money? We're going to say that if you actually brought it, that's nosam v'nosam b'yad. That's handing it over. And he's going to prove it. The Omar, now let's follow the cases and see. Part of the proof is going to come from the case, the psak, and the challenge to the psak. Hu gavra, the achve achamra de Rebbe Pinchas. Ude Rav Mary. B'nei Rav Chisda. Okay, so they were attacked to show the money. They were attacked, and they showed the money of. They showed the wine of Rav Pinchas and Rav Mary. So again, Goyim attacked them, and in response to the attack, they showed the wine. After they showed the wine, Omrei Lei. Now the Goyim said, Dori v'amti b'hadein, bring it with you. Now you take this wine and bring it to the king's palace. You remember that case. They were attacked. They showed the wine. They were forced, show us, where is Rav Mary's wine? And they showed it. And then the guy says, okay, now that you showed it, bring it. Okay? The amti b'hadayu also l'kamei de Rav Ashi patre. Rav Ashi patred them. So Rav Ashi's right away attacked. So if we say that nasav and nasav biyad means you handed it over. Did they hand over to the king Rav Mary's wine? Yes. They picked it up and they took it to the palace. So they're being challenged with the din that says that handing it over, you handed it over. What was the answer? Hopefully you remember the answer. The answer was, when do I say that when you hand it over, you're chayiv? That's when the goyim aren't there. That the only way they can get it is by you handing it over. However, hacha kiven de ukminu olayu, meaning you showed it to them, and now they're standing there. So when they weren't standing next to the money and you brought them the money, so that's nasav and nasav biyad, you're chayiv. But here, all you did is showed, and showing is grama. So after you showed it to them, they're there, and they could take it themselves, and they told you to bring it. Therefore, you're pater. Kivan de ukmina iloyi mikla kalye. So that's the Gemara. Now the Rif is going to prove from that Gemara like this. Iyamrid bishlo mahadatanya chayev afal gavta anis hainu de komakshi mine rabbanon liravashi. So if you want to assume that bringing is the same as handing, remember the issue here, keep your mind on the issue. The issue is whether bringing it under duress is the same as handing it. So they wanted to say, no, bringing it is not the same as handing it. Bringing it is less severe. But he says, wait a minute, if bringing it is less severe than handing, then what was the kasha b'chlal? What was the kasha? They brought it. How could you make them pater? They brought it. Bringing it, right? Bringing it is you see that they say bringing it. You want to tell me that bringing is pater? I see bringing is chayev. The hainu de komakshi mine rabbanon again. So afal gav the honest to bring it. Hainu de komakshi mine rabbanon l'ravashi, and he had to give an answer that once they're there, it's already not called. That's not the normal case of bringing, which is equated with handing. That when are you chayiv? Only when you brought it without an onus. Aval hecha de onis, when you were forced to bring it, you're pater, like they want to say. Hecha komakshi mina rabbanon l'ravashi. Ve'ahu gavra de patre ravashi onus have. He was forced to bring it, and you want to tell me that when you're forced to bring it, that's already not the same as handing it, and you're pater. So how could they ask a kasha from bringing? And then he says, and another proof. Why did Ravashi excuse his psak by saying, well, they're there already, so bringing it is not so bad? What's your kasha? Your kasha is that bringing is chayiv. No, bringing is only chayiv when you did it on your own, but when you're on is bringing is pater. In other words, he's trying to show that bringing it is, again, they wanted to say that bringing it is not as severe as handing it. When you were forced, all right, when you were forced to bring, that's not the same as being forced to hand. And he's saying, I see that it is. Aval ha anisu elishmami. No, here's the key line. This is the Rif's conclusion. Kilo, I'm sorry, excuse me. Kilo, here's the key line. Kilo ukminu iluye. If the goyim aren't there in front of the money, afal gav da anis, even though you're being forced to bring it, it's under duress. Chayev, you're chayev because you're being Matzil Atzmo Bmamon Chavero. Because if you don't bring the money, they're going to beat you up. So then what's so now remember we have three categories. We have a category of showing it, we have a category of bringing it, and we have a category of handing it. So the first opinion was that when you're forced to bring it, that's like showing it. And showing it is pater. But the Rif is saying, no. Showing it is pater because it's grama. The pater, right? Because it's grama. As you're going to say, what's the difference between showing and handing? Hi pater v'hai chayiv tarvayu anusi. They're both under duress. Why am I pater for showing and chayiv for handing? Hi grama v'hai biyadayin. There's a difference between being forced to hand and being forced to show. But the Rif says from our Gemara, it's clear the fact that they even attacked Rava with the brisa of they handed it over. You see that he holds handing is the same as handing it. I'm sorry, the same showing, bringing it. Bringing it is the same as handing it. And that's the vikuach here. Is bringing it under duress the same as handing it under duress? So we all agree that handing it, even though it's under duress, is going to have to pay because it's Matzil Atzmo Bmamon Chavero. All right, and showing it is clearly pater under duress because it's grama. If you show it without duress, all right, you just call hey, here's some money for you. Then of course you're chayiv even for showing it. Okay, so let's stop there for a minute and see how that again the Rif has refuted the opinion that says bringing it under duress is going to be pater, and the Rif holds bringing it under duress is like handing it under duress. Again, and the reason he shows it is because the only reason Rava excused his psak was because first he showed it, and showing it is pater, and once they're standing there on the money, him bringing it to the palace or not is not relevant because they didn't really need him to bring it. And that's very different than bringing it, because Stam bringing it, obviously they're forcing you to bring it, means they don't have access to it. And therefore, says the Rif, you should be chayiv. Is this clear till here what the issue is? Well, we haven't yet talked about, you know what, I don't even want to say what we haven't talked about, because that'll just confuse us more. Right now, we're only talking about the issue of showing the money under duress, bringing the money under duress, and handing the money under duress. Those are the options.
So there seem to be 2 points he's making. Bringing it and handing it are the same thing, and that if they're already, and it's all dependent on whether they're already there or not. And if they're already there, you're going to be putter, even if they showed it, because they could get it anyway. But if somebody,
you said right, but you're mixing it up. The first thing he did, they were forcing him to show it, and he showed it. Freeze frame. Is he chayiv for that?
If they're forcing him, he's not chayiv. But if they were not forcing,
don't. Let's stay focused on the case. So this was the real case. They forced him to show Rav Mary's wine under duress, and he showed it. Chayiv or pater?
Pater.
Is he called Matzil Atzmo Bmamon Chavero?
No, because it's a grama. Okay.
Now, after that happened, and they're standing there, he showed it, they're now there, they instructed him to bring it to the king's palace. So those that argue on the Rif say, well, that sounds like bringing it, that sounds like handing it, because he picked it up and he handed it to the king. And Rav Rava's response was, since they're there already, there's no additional crime of handing it because they have access to it and they don't need you. But if they forced you to bring it from far away where they don't have access to it until you bring it, then that's going to be like handing it and you're going to be chayiv.
Complicated.
That's the Rif and the arguers on the Rif. Daniel, you had a question?
No, I'm just saying it's complicated.
Oh, yes. And it's going to get more complicated. So that's what I'm trying to go step by step. I'm trying to keep it as simple as possible. Okay, in the Rif, it's going to be relatively straightforward, more or less, i.e., there's the Rif and those that argue on the Rif. But the Nimukei Yosef is going to make it much more complicated. Okay, it's a trigger warning. Okay. Okay, let's go back into the Rif. Okay. So why is there a difference between showing it and handing it? In both cases, you're saving yourself with Shimon's money. All right, one is pater, one is chayiv. And now, Mistai, I'm going to prove to you that I'm right. Hi svara mehada otvei Rav Kahana le Rav Ashi. Omar, right? We wanted to try to bring a contradiction to Rav Ashi, and he said, and he brought the following brisa: Anas hoshit li pikia amir zeh o eshkol zeh. When the Anas tells Ruvain, hand me this bundle of wool or these grapes that belong to Shimon, V'hoshidlo, and Reuven hands it to him, chayev. Right. And there was a kasha. I see that handing it is and I see that handing it is chayev. All right. I see that even though they're standing there, if you hand it, you're chayev. They were standing there. So what I see that even when they're standing there, it's irrelevant. And if standing is irrelevant, so then how could you pater them from bringing it to the palace? And the answer was, Parkinan, Achabamayaskinan, Dekai Betreavi Nahara. Well, that scenario is when they're on two different sides of the river and they didn't have access to it. The lo matzi shakilei. There's no way you would have gotten it without Reuven handing it to them. So again, he's trying to show you that, and the Gemara said Hachanami Mistavra because of the language of Hoshit. It sounds like they're there. All right, they're there. Okay, I'm sorry that they're not there. That you got to reach out with it, and only then is he going to be chayiv. But if they would have actually been standing there, and it says, "Look, I'm standing here. Please pick it up and hand it to me." When they're standing there, Itaka would have been pater. Okay, and therefore, again, the Rif is showing you that the only time you're pater is when they're standing there on the money. Then when you hand it, you're pater. Okay, and the Rif is going a step further than the Gemara. Not only when you bring it to the palace are you pater, because according to the Rif, bringing it to the palace and handing it is exactly the same thing. The Rif holds bringing it and handing it is exactly the same thing. And therefore, when they force you to bring it, it's like forcing you to hand it. And in both cases, you're going to be chayiv. Whereas the other opinion held that no, bringing it is not the same as handing it. Okay, that's as far as we go in this. Now we're going to skip down to, again, if you have the regular pages of the Rif, we're now going to go into all of our other cases of the cup and the pidyon shvuya money. I'm doing that now only because even though we've got the complications here, the rest of it is pretty straightforward. But because the Nimukei Yosef is going to be bringing these cases to try to reconcile the machlokas between the Rif and the one who argues. The one who argues is Rav Hai Gaon. Okay, Rav Hai Gaon is the one who argues on the Rif. Okay, so we're going to remind ourselves of these cases, and the Rif will give a little bit of a commentary, again, to show where he's coming from. So skip down to 5 lines from the bottom. Ahu Gavra, Dafkiru Gabe Kosa de Kaspa. I'm only going to explain what is not explicit in the case that we did in the Gemara. Ahu Gavra Dafkiru Gabe Kosa de Kaspa, Asu Gambe, Aleu Shakle, Yavi Nahale. All right, the Ganavim came and he handed them the cup. Also, Lakame de Rava, Patre. Amalei Abayai, Matzil Atzmo Bmamon Chavero. Right? They were going to beat him up or kill him if he didn't hand over the money, and he handed over the money. And he should be chayiv because Matzil Atzmo Bmamon Chavero is chayiv. Amar Ravashi nexeyana. Well, it depends. Iamid alei asu ve'ilo. I'm sorry. Iamid alei asu ve'ilo amid alei. Ahu kasa hu dasu. So so then he will be chayiv. But ilo amid alei hahu kasahu da'asu. They didn't want money; they wanted the cup, and therefore, as we said in Rashi, and we'll see in the Rif, the Mukios will elaborate on it. But if they wanted the cup, they're pater, and that's not called Matzil Atzmo Bmamon Chavero, and that's opening the next door of questions. Does it matter whether they're demanding specific money? And I hand it to them. And if I don't hand them the specific money, they're going to beat me up or kill me. They're going to kill Reuven if he doesn't hand the specific money. Well, at the end of the day, is he being Matzil Atzmo Bmamon Chavero?
Yeah.
If he doesn't hand it over, they're going to kill him. They're going to beat him up. So what difference does it make whether they came for that money or they came for money? That's going to be the other issue that we're going to have. Does it matter whether they demand specific money? Hand us Shimon's money. And he gives them Shimon's money, or hand us money, and instead of giving his money, he gives Shimon's money. Is that going to be a difference? And you guys follow, this is the difference. They demanded money, and he gave Shimon's money. Everybody agrees that's chayiv. That's Matzil Atzmo Bmamon Chavero. What about if they demanded Shimon's money, or we'll beat you up? Well, now I could see that may be a gray area. Because on the one hand, they didn't want his money; they wanted Shimon's money. So what was I supposed to do? I couldn't give my money. That's going to be a very big issue. But again, we'll see it in the all of this is going to be in the Nemukei Yosef. Next case. Okay. Hahu gavre de'afkidu gabe arnika de pidyon shvui. Asu gan ve'alei shakle yahavei nehole. Asu kame de Rabba Patre. Amar Abayai Matzil Atzmo Bmamon Chavero. Amar lei en lecha pidyon shvuim gadol mizeh. So the Rif doesn't make any comment on that. He quotes the Gemara as is, which leaves us ambiguous to whether the guy was a poor guy, a rich guy. Okay, as Tosa said, he must have, even if he was a rich guy, it must be he didn't have money. But we saw in the other Rishonim, we saw the Tosas read that no, it matters. It must be whether he's a poor guy, because if he was a rich guy, he should have given his own money. Anyway, well, we'll come back to that in the Nemukei Yosef. Next. You'll notice that the Rif learns the case that who went on first? The donkey went on first. Not right. The donkey went on first. Not the people went on and then we brought on the donkey. Okay, we brought on the donkey and then the people. Okay, and then havi kasalki inshi lemavre havi kaboy lemitva. Okay. The people are going to drown. Okay, so Malach Bey Chad Minayu Shadi Lechamri B'Maya. One guy threw the donkey off the boat because it was clear that the donkey was causing the problems. So Lekami de Rava Patre. So Rava said, "You're Pater." Amar le'avai Matzil Atzmo Bmamon Chavero. Amar le'Rava Rodefu. Right, that the donkey is a rodef, and let's just read it to remind ourselves. Rava L'Tamei. Remember, this is Rava who holds the following equation. Rodef shaya rodef achar chavero lehargo. So we have Reuven running after Shimon, and Shiber Kalim, and Reuven breaks Kalim. Bain shel nirdaf. I'm sorry. Rodef shaya rodef achar chavero lehargo v'shiber asa Kalim. Right. Bain shel nirdaf, meaning whether Reuven the rodef broke Shimon's Kalim or he broke a third party's Kalim. He's pater. Why time? Miskai benafsho. There's a kamle b'da rabamine there, and therefore he's pater on mamon because he's chayv misa. But nirdaf sheshiber es hakelim. But if Shimon broke Kalim to save himself, so then if he broke the Kalim shel rodef pater, then he's going to be pater if he broke the rodef's Kalim. But shall kol other. But if he broke a third party's kalim, so the nirdaf to save himself broke a third party kalim, says Rava, he's going to be chayev. What's the difference between breaking the rodef's kalim and the nirdaf's kalim? Shall rodef pater lo yemamon chama bigufo. Meaning, since he's allowed to kill the rodef, he can break his kalim. But fundamentally, he should be chayev because he has no right to break somebody else's kalim to save himself, because that's Matzil Atzmo Bmamon Chavero. Shall kol adam chayev. Because also Bmamon Chavero. If he breaks a third party kalim to save himself from Reuven, Shimon broke Levi's kalim. That's Matzil Atzmo Bmamon Chavero, and therefore Rava holds Matzil Atzmo Bmamon Chavero is chayiv. Okay, but except for breaking the rodef's kalim, and in the case of the boat, whose kalim did the guy who pushed the donkey off the boat? Whose kalim did he break? Are you guys with me?
The road deck.
The guy who pushed the donkey off the boat. So he saved himself the mammon of the owner of the donkey.
It was the rodef.
But the owner of the donkey is a rodef, so therefore, according to Rabbi, it was okay. It was okay to do that.
I just wonder how if the donkey and his owner were first on the boat, what turns them into a rodef? They were there first. They paid their dues. I think I asked that also last week.
You did. So again, that's going to be the difference whether the donkey came first or came last. If the donkey came first, the assumption is that the donkey is going wild.
That's what. You have to have that ukimta, otherwise.
And that's why the boat is about to sink. Yes, I agreed, 100%. Yes, because in fact, if the donkey got there first and then more people, and it was only because the boat is too heavy,
then the last one to get on.
Say the last guys who got on. Why'd you guys get on? Right, that is
the mice doesn't even matter if it's a donkey. Could be all intents and purposes could be a person that goes mad. And
yeah, okay, that's not so common. That's not so common. The person goes mad, you don't have to throw him overboard. You just beat him up. You beat him up to silence him. Okay. All right. Okay. Okay, we'll see this. And by the way, the Nemukei Yosef is also going to talk about that case. So you're asking good, but the Rif clearly learned pshat that the donkey came first. Okay, but not everybody learned like that, as we will see when we get to the Shita Mekubetzes, which is even more common. Rabosa trigger word. This is very complicated stuff, but I think we're going to have a lot of fun if we can figure out and work through all the complications. Okay, next. I'm just saying that if the guy trying to save the victim breaks kalim, we're going to make him potter extra legal. It's a social construct. This is because we don't want people to hesitate. We don't want people to hesitate about saving the rodev. Okay, I mean, I don't want to get political or anything, but this is exactly an issue when the rules of engagement with terrorists. All right, if you're not sure whether your life is in danger or not, the instructions from the court was you're not allowed to kill the terrorist. And that led to many people being killed. It's very clear here in the halacha. If there is a danger to your life, you're not sure, all right, you do it right away. Otherwise, you're going to hesitate. We want to legislate so that you don't hesitate to save life. If Reuven is running after Shimon to kill him, and Levi has to think, wait a minute, I better be careful because if I break somebody's kalim in my attempt to save Shimon, I'm going to have to pay. He's going to hesitate. And therefore we say, look, you're off the hook. If you're doing it while you're trying to save Shimon, you're exempt for whatever happens. That's
the same logic why Hatzalah is allowed to go back, because if they start thinking when they have a call, how am I going to get back? Then they're going to delay, and Has v'Shalom, it could lead to yeah.
Okay, you're saying good that you're connecting something that's not directly related but indirectly related. Is the psak is that when an ambulance has to go on Shabbos, okay, and you got to get out, you stop your Shabbos meal and you go on Shabbos to the hospital, the psak is you're allowed to drive home again. Otherwise, people won't go. Okay, but that's an Orach Chaim. So yeah, we could talk about that another time. Maybe suggest that for the Chabura in the future. Okay, so that basically is the end of the Rif. Okay. So now we're going to go back and start the Nemukei Yosef. So the Nemukei Yosef starts with the top of Mem Gimel Amud Aleph, okay, where the first story. So again, let's remind ourselves, because now the Nemukei Yosef is going to be making comments all along the way, both on the scenarios and on the Rif's use of the scenarios. So remember the first scenario. The first scenario was Yisrael Sha'ansu. I'm just reading it again in the Rif on the third wide line. Yisrael Sha'ansu Kusim. Vehera Bmamon Chavero. Okay. And Chiyavtiv. So on that, Rava said, right? I'm sorry. Not Rava. And Rav Huna said, you got to give back the money. Because what's the Brisa? And we're going to learn Pshat in the Brisa. All right, that the Brisa said, Yisrael Shansu Kusim Vehera Bmamon Chavero-Saving Oneself Biyad Chayev, and this was a Nasan B'Natal Biyad. Okay, so you should have made him Chayev. Says the Nemukei Yosef. Im Natal V'Nasan Biyad Chayev, Pirush Rashi. It's not our Rashi, it's the Rashi that's on the side of the Rif. The Matzil Atzmo Bmamon Chavero. Why should he be Chayev? Because he gave away Shimon's money that the Goyim were forcing him to give, but at the end of the day, he was Matzil Atzmo Bmamon Chavero, and we hold Matzil Atzmo Bmamon Chavero as Chayiv. That's what the Brisa said. Upirush Natal B'Nasan Biyad Me'atzmo Below Unsa. So that's a little bit tricky exactly what that means, because l'chayra the case is unsa. So it must mean that if it was Natal V'Nasan Biyad Me'atzmo below unsa, so then for sure he's going to be chayiv. 1 second, where have I got here? I got something marked. Okay, where's that dalet? Again, the gears here is very tricky because it sounds like the only time you're chayiv is if you're nasa v'nasa be'atzmo. Okay, so just a minute. Where is it here? Just looking here for the Girsas here, just a minute. Yeah, so what he said, yeah, the Girsa is that this is, again, all right. Im notov v'nosam biyad chayiv, that's Atzmo Bmamon Chavero. Okay, and that's the din of the Brisa. And then Rava says, this is Rava adding that in the event that there wasn't an ones, okay, and he handed it by himself, okay, so then he's certainly going to be chayiv. Okay. All right. The Rif Zal. Now let's go to the. But here's what we need. The Rif Zal Pirish. Notal v'nosan biyad chayiv, afilu ansu akum lehavi oso maman shalploni. According to the Rif, when it says notal v'nosan biyad chayiv, that's going to be true even if the goyim forced him to bring money from far away. They didn't just say give us money, and he took Shimon's money and gave it, but the goyim forced him to go and get Shimon's money. All right, that ansuhu lahavi oso maman shalploni. Again, so here's the scenario: the goyim come and they say, "Bring us Shimon's money, or we'll kill you." And they don't have access to Shimon's money because he's got to go bring it, and he brought it b'ones. So says the Rif, you're also chayiv because that's like handing it over. Okay. But hera lohem ba'onis, vehevi ba'onis, chayiv afal gav de ansuhu lehar oso Bmamon Chavero vehera potter. So if they forced him to show, okay, and that's all he did, he's potter. But if they forced him to show and he brought, so according that's the question now: is that chayiv or potter? But if he forced him, so again, here the girsas here are a little tricky. Okay, where's that hay? Let me just find that hay. Well, come on, where is it? Yeah. So if you'll see that the Agos adds lo, it's a little hay. Lo ukme mamish aluye. So let's go back and read it like that. Okay. So again. Okay, notal v'nosan biyad chayiv, afilu ansu akum lahavi oso maman shalploni. Okay, but if they're not there and hera lahem be'ones or hevi be'ones, either two cases, he showed them the money when they're not there, and he brought them the money be'ones, he's chayiv. Afal gav da ansuhu laharos Bmamon Chavero vehera potter. Chilek zal. So what's going on here? Here's the difference. Bein masha osa biyadayim mamish lehera shu grama. In other words, what exactly did he do? Did he just show them without doing anything to the money, or did he bring the money to them, or he maybe brought them to the money? Okay, again, all of these are very tricky situations, but look what he says, the Rambam. That because of Allah, well, you'll see what the Ravid says, you'll see how we understand the Rambam. We didn't see the Rambam inside. Okay. Gam bezel derech harav hu holech ve'ena gaon modelo. The gaon is the Rav Hai Gaon that argues on the Rif, that the Rif brought that opinion. V'chein bedin she'en lecha davar she'omid b'fnei pikuach nefesh u'me'ayin yischayev lo zeh she'yomus b'shvil Bmamon Chavero hoil v'yichdu lo v'feirush. So he's making here a difference. Here we go. The difference is going to be like this. When they force you to give Reuven's money, as opposed to they force you to give money and you use Reuven's money. He wants to say that if they force you to give, I should have used Shimon. If they force Reuven to give Shimon's money, and he gives Shimon's money, what was his alternative? Let me elaborate. Here's the two cases, and I want you to understand the difference. They hold a gun at your head and they say, give Shimon's money or we'll kill you. That's case A. And he gives Shimon's money. Case B is, give us money or we'll kill you. And he gives them Shimon's money.
Obviously, the second case is worse.
Because
Because he wasn't told to give Shimon's money, and he gave it anyway. Why did he should be chayiv? It's more. There's more of a reason to be chayiv when they wasn't told specifically to give Shimon's money.
Okay.
Depends
So
if he has money himself or not. If he doesn't have money, if he has money, so then for sure it's chayiv.
wait. Okay, everything you guys are saying, right? You got to hit. I want to hit pinpoint.
And Matzil Atzmo Bmamon Chavero, he's saving his own money, giving his neighbor.
Oh, but when they say, "Give us Shimon's money, or we will kill you," is that Matzil Atzmo Bmamon Chavero?
No.
That's the machlokas here. That's going to be one of the machlokases. When they say, "Give us Shimon's money, or we will kill you." Is that called Matzil Atzmo Bmamon Chavero? Says the Ravid, well, what's he supposed to do? Die?
Exactly.
He's not saving. He's not saving himself with Shimon's money. They want him to give Shimon's money. There's no choice. It's either give Shimon's money or die. When they say give us money, and he could have used his money, and he uses Shimon's money, that's Matzil Atzmo Bmamon Chavero. Okay? But that's going to not be so simple. Okay? Because if you remember the case of the cup, we'll see. Okay, let's read on in the Rif, in the Nemukeyos. Again, so Kosav Arivit. Again, let's go back and see, because the Girsas here are a little bit tricky. Okay, but let's read it one more time. According to the Rif, basically what he's saying is, according to the Rif and the Rambam, if the Rav is arguing, according to the Rif and the Rambam, it doesn't matter whether they're demanding specific money or they're demanding money. At the end of the day, you gave away, you handed them. Again, we're talking here where you handed it to them. You took the money, biyadayim, and you handed them Shimon's money. According to the Rif and the Rambam, you're chayiv.
Even when they said specifically wanted Shimon's money,
if you hand it to them, that's where we get into the issue of handing versus showing versus bringing. Now you could see the bringing, when they say, give us Shimon's money or we'll kill you, and you just bring it to them, maybe that's not as bad as handing it to them. Okay,
but the Rif doesn't make it. The Rif doesn't make that.
The Rif absolutely does not make a distinction. Okay, and that's what we're going to be talking about. Okay, right? That's what the Ravid is saying. How does Reuven become chayev when they said, give us Shimon's money or we'll kill you, and he gave them Shimon's money? They said explicitly. That if they handed it, they're going to be chayev. Okay, now says this is all background. Now says the Nemukei Yosef. Echtov pirushi b'sof shmaitin al mekomo mipnei shadaiti lechaber ri'as harif al mekomo techila. Because we have to get to the end case. Why do we have to wait till the end? Because the end case is the cup, the silver cup. And we said it depends whether he had other money or they came for the silver cup. If he had no other money and they came for the silver cup, we wanted to say maybe pater. Okay, so anyway, Amar Machaber, L'das Harif Zal, Shenosa v'nosan biyad chayiv, afilu ansu al mamon zeh. Okay, that's the Rif. Even if they forced him to give Shimon's money, and he gave Shimon's money, if he handed to them, he's going to be chayiv. Kitanya biyahi hera pater, because the only time you're pater is hera. Leslan lemifter elikahaygav nadafka. So if the Brisa says nasan v'nasan b'yad chayiv, hera pater, it doesn't matter whether it was money or this money. Avali mansu stam v'hera Bmamon Chavero chayiv shari Matzil Atzmo Bmamon Chavero umilsa dimistavri. You call hecha the Matzil Atzmo Bmamon Chavero chayiv l'shlume afilu behera shelo nasan v'nasan b'yad. Whoa. So look what he's saying. He is saying, wait a minute. If they ask you for money, okay, and you showed them Shimon's money, he's saying you're chayiv. Why? Because you were Matzil Atzmo Bmamon Chavero. V'zeh pirush rava im hera me'atzmo b'kenosa v'nosan b'yad dami, when they didn't ask for specific money. Okay, if they didn't ask for specific money and you showed them Shimon's money, that's as if you gave it to them. Again, this is the machlokas. The kol halacha meida shaper kipir zal, like the Machaber, which is the Revai Gaon. Afal gav she'efshar lidchos dechuye ninhu. Yeah, you could argue exactly how to understand it. Again, basically what we're saying is the Gemara is very ambiguous, right? When do we say nosav and notav and nosam biyad is chayiv? Is it only when they demanded your money, or they demanded even when they demanded specific money? Okay. Umasha kasha. Let's just continue on a little bit more. Umasha kasha alav meod. Zot. You know where the problem arises on this whole shita is the Gemara of kasa de kaspa, the silver cup. Why? The iya kasa atu. What do we say? If the guy is a poor guy and the goyim came for the cup, what did we say in the Gemara? Chayav or pater? What do the Gemara say if he's a poor guy?
Pater.
They came to the poor guy. We know they're coming for the cup, and therefore he's pater. That's why Rama patered. That's why we would pater. Wait a minute, but they came for the cup. Did he hand it to him? Yes, he handed it to them, and yet we say pater. So pater avagav diyav biyadayim. So you see that when they come for specific money, even if you hand it, you're going to be pater. That's one rai. The yoter yesh min hatmiha. Ech lo ergisha harav ba v'lo chashva lenegdo meuma. How did you miss that point? That's clear that when you came for specific money, even if you handed it by yad, you're pater. How could somebody say that if you come for specific money, you're going to be chayav? L'chein nira li shayu pashat lefanav zal delo dam yaklal v'lav rayehi lahanach dehach pikadon hu. Oh, you know why that's not a proof? Is because the guy in the cup is a shomer. The shomer shiny. Somebody wanted to mention that. We treat a shomer different. So remember what the case is. The Ruvain has Shimon's cup as a shomer. That's not this, and they come to him and say, give us the cup or we'll kill you. That's not the same as walking up to Ruvain out of the blue and saying, go get us Shimon's money or we'll kill you. You see the difference between just getting Shimon's money when you have no connection to Shimon's money, or you're a shomer and they want Shimon's money. What's the difference? When do I say that if they came for the cup, that Reuven is pater? The Rosh figured out that, wait a minute, what happened here? They asked specifically for the money and he handed it to them. Akum, Shomer shiny. How is it? Wait a minute. Do you want to make the Shomer more chayav or more pater than a stranger?
More pater.
Oh, the Shomer should be more chayav, but he doesn't have.
I was waiting for that.
But he doesn't have to give up his life for being a Shomer. Even a Shomer Sacher doesn't have to give up his life. There's a limit to Achrayis. This is
okay.
Honest already.
So let's understand what Daniel just said and what Stu is trying to say. So I've got a guy here. Are my key. You got to hold everything constant with only one thing. The Akum comes with a gun, holds a gun at Reuven's head, and says, now we split off into two cases. He says to Reuven, give us Shimon's money or we'll kill you. That's case A. Case B, give us Shimon's cup that you're a shomer on or we'll kill you. If I told you one's chayv and one's pater, which would be chayv, which would be pater? Says the written Mukei Yosef, it's okay. It's good that Stu and Daniel had different perspectives. Now let's look at the Mukei Yosef, which is the Rosh. Afagav dansu akum shomer shiny the adaita dehachi afkidei gabe sheyatzil atzmo iasu daita de kasa. When Reuven became a shomer on the cup, what was the das? That if armed robbers come, is he going to die or give the cup?
Give the cup, obviously.
Daniel, you hear that that's built into the Shmira is that I'm not mechuyev. And in fact, that's listed mizuyim. Even if it's a shomer sachar, he's potter because it's an ones. So it's part of the Shmira that I'm allowed to give the cup. But when they're going to kill you, if you don't go do something, you go steal. Basically, what you're doing is kill you, or we'll steal. If you don't steal Shimon's cup, we're going to kill you. So what gives you the right to steal Shimon's cup? If you do it to save your life, you got to pay. But the shomer, that was part and parcel of the shmira. Obviously, if an armed robber comes to take the cup, I'm not going to give my life. I'm not going to risk my life for it. And therefore, says the Rosh, there's a difference whether. So there's no proof from the cup case. There's no proof from the silver cup case. Of course, you're putter over there if they came for the cup, and of course you're chayiv if they came for money and you give them the cup. Okay. But when they hold a gun at your head and say, go get us Shimon's money or we'll kill you, that's Matzil Bmamon, that's Matzil Atzmo Bmamon Chavero, just like they said, give us money and we'll kill you. So again, what we're showing is that the cup case is no raya, and therefore we can still argue what's going to be the din when they say, give us Shimon's money or we'll kill you, or give us money and you give them Shimon's money. We can still argue whether that's Matzil Atzmo or not.
When it's not a show, when he's not a shomer, that's the machlokas.
That's the whole point. Is we can't use the case of the cup as a proof for anything. Okay, the kivan. Let's just read the fourth line in the Bmamon Chavero-Saving, and then we'll break. Kivan the Gemara Shalanu Asya Kedas Harav Zal Lo Chayish Ayirushalmi Dilakame. Because that we're going to bring because Sheken Yochol Lomar Nami Pikoran Mairi. Hayushalmi, Kamosha Kosav Bifnim. We'll see later. Umi Masha Kosav Arrivad. Let's go. So we're going to see the Yerushalmi later. Masha Kosav Arrivad. Nearly Nachon Ma'od. The Nehidalo Amrin and Yomus Val Yisav Yitim Biyad. El Yishalem. Mikol Makom Echitesa. She's Chayiv L'Shalem. Kivin Shein Lo Lomus Alav. Begam Lo Bolo Ha'anas. Miyad Achar. Miyad Acher. Ela Al Oso Mama. The Rivat says, wait a minute. When they come to after they want me to give them Shimon's money, I'm not mechuyev to die for Shimon's money. If they want me to give my money and I give Shimon's money, I'm mechuyev to give them my money. What am I doing? Giving them Shimon's money. So of course I'm chayiv. But if they want Shimon's money and they're going to kill me, what's my alternative? I'm not mechuyev to die for Shimon's money. Therefore, says the Rivat, I should be potter also. Ela also mamon shichdu lo beferush. Then I should be potter. So that's the Rivat shita. Get not like the Rif. So when do I say you're chayv if you hand it? The guy is not there. But if the goy is there, and he looks at Shimon's money, and he holds a gun at Reuven's head and says, hand me Shimon's money or I'll kill you. So is that called natal v'nosam biyad? Of course not. That's not natal v'nosam biyad. The goy's there. The money's gone. Shimon's money is gone. The goy can get it. Okay? And therefore, we have to make a distinction whether the goy is there or the goy is not there. All right, we'll stop here. We'll pick this up on Wednesday. Again, it's very complicated, but we're going to try to work our way through this Bmamon Chavero-Saving, and then we'll see the other shitos. Okay? All right. Beseder, everybody. Have a good week. We'll see you on Wednesday. Mizrat Hashem.